Today's lesson is on percents. A percent is a ratio that compares a number to 100. So the first thing we have to do when we're talking about percents and decimals and fractions is we do need to know how to convert between the three different forms. So going down the list here, anytime you take a fraction and make it a decimal, divide your numerator by your denominator. So if you're looking at this first example here, to make that fraction a decimal, you would take 5 and then divide that by 8. So add your decimal, add your 0, bring it up, and then you start to go through the entire division problem. You'll notice that when you do get finished, you are going to get 0.625. So when I then take that decimal and I make it a fraction, read the decimal with the place value and reduce. So what that means is I look at this and I don't read it as 0.625. I actually say 625 thousandths. So you would write 625 thousandths. And then you would take that and you would reduce it. And this would reduce to 5/8. So then when I take a percent and I want to make it a fraction, so that's this guy here, I write my percentage over 100 and I reduce. So I'm going to go down here. So I have 40%. And if I want to make that a fraction, I simply put 40 over 100 and I reduce it. And this one's going to reduce to 2/5. To make a percent a decimal, so that's this guy here, move your decimal 2 places to the left. To make a decimal a percent, move your decimal 2 places to the right. So percent to decimal, you're actually taking it and dividing it by 100 because every percent is out of 100. So it's like taking this here, 40 divided by 100. So 1, 2 to the left. So it's 0.4. If I want to take a decimal and make it a percent, I go 1, 2 to the right. So I just reduce what redo what I just did. So 62.5%. And then if I want to take a fraction and make it a percent, I can set up these proportions where I have my numerator over my denominator. So if I take the 5/8 and I want to make it a percent, I know 5 out of 8 is the same thing as x out of 100. And when you go through that and you solve it, you're going to get 62.5%. So if you want, you can fill out the rest of these. You can use your calculators to do these and bounce back and forth. So as soon as you're done, pause this video now, and then I'm going to fill it out. And when you finish it, unpause and check your answers. So here it is all filled out. And if you need to pause the video for another minute just so that you can check all of your answers, please do so. So the next thing we're going to look at is over of problems. Translate the number sentence or the number sentence word for word and solve the equation. So we have two different types of ways we can do this. We can do it as an equation or we can do it as a proportion. So the way I'm going to show you right now is an equation format, which is kind of better for us to use as we are in Math 8. So the equation, the way it works is we call these is over or is to of sentences because is equals percent times of. These things have like what we call part to whole relationship. The proportion piece of it would be is over of equals percent over 100. So you can see in order to get the is, if you use your cross products, it'd be like having is times 100 equals of times percent. And that's basically what this says right here. It is a part to whole relationship. So when you talk about a percent is part of an entire 100. So out of the whole number, this is a piece of it. So what percent of 80 is 15? So I want to know, well, 15 is what percent of 80? So that's, you're looking for the percent, so that's going to be represented with X. Of is the whole, is the part. So if you're following the equation model, it's going to look like that. 15 equals x times 80. Then you would divide both sides by 80, and you'll find out that x equals 0.1875. Change that to a percent, move the decimal 2 to the right, you'll get 18.75%. So anytime you're looking to find the percentage, you're going to get it in its decimal form, so you need to convert it to a decimal. If you have, like in number 2, you say 45 is 40% of what number? Okay, so 45 is the part. Part is what percent, so, or 40%, so 0.4. You cannot compute it as 40. It has to be in its decimal form. So 45 is 0.4 times x. It's part of the whole. Okay, so then we would divide by 0.4, and you're going to get 112.5 equals x. So x is 112.5. So 45 is 40% of 112.5. If I was to use the proportion method, I could do that. The only difference with the proportion method is that when you find your percent or you use your percent, you do not have to change it. It can be still in its percentage form. So the next one says find 115% of 200. So now I'm looking for part. I want to know what is 115%, so 1.15, because I have to convert it, of 200. So I'll find out that 115% of 200 is going to be 230. What I want you to do now is I want you to pause the video, do 4, 5, and 6, and then unpause it and check. So you can check your answers with these. Take a look at number 4. It does say what percent of 40 is 65. Notice that it's 162% because your part, this piece, is actually greater than the whole. What percent of the 40 is 65? So the piece is bigger than the whole, so it's going to be greater than 100%. So when you're doing these problems, I want you to use the formula of, or the equation, is equals percent times whole, or of. Same thing. So part equals the percent of the of.